Hello everybody, this is Refresh and I'm here to look at the Symbiotic Swarm commander deck for Magic the Gathering. According to the back, Cathril is a cunning insectile nightmare with powerful shape-shifting abilities. It excels at strategically mimicking other creatures and delights in luring would-be predators to their deaths. Inside you'll have a deck box, 100 card deck with 17 new cards, 10 double-sided token cards, foil oversized commander card, life wheel, strategy insert, reference card, and 24 counters. Let's go ahead and take a look at the contents. Cathril Aspect Warper costs 2 white, black, and green. For that you get a legendary creature, Nightmare Insect. When Cathril Aspect Warper enters the battlefield, put a flying counter on any creature you control if a creature card in your graveyard has flying. Repeat this process for First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance. Then put a +1/+1 counter on Cathril for each counter put on a creature this way. Wow, that is a lot of counters to track. Here we have our flimsy too small deck box. Here we have our strategy insert. On the left we have a very brief description of what the decks are kind of trying to do. It's not terribly instructive, but it's something as opposed to nothing. And then instructions for each of the 3 commanders as well. We have some information about how to play commander here. And on the back we have a little bit of biographical information for each of the commanders, which I appreciate as well. This is our life wheel, a card divider, and our deck. And that is the deck. I'll play it against the others and I'll be back to let you know what I think. Alright, so let's talk about Symbiotic Swarm. Before I get into the deck itself, I do need to note that there is some serious issues with the production of this deck, particularly in regards to its paper products. The deck boxes, I had all the Ikoria decks, and the deck boxes kind of stuck together. And as you can see, there's some serious warping in the structure of the deck box, and it even stuck inside to itself. So I was wondering if there was something wrong with the deck, like that somehow glue had gotten in it. And it's not as bad with this particular deck, but there's also some major warping with the foil commander, oversized commander card that was given here. As you can see, the paper in the back has shrunk a bit and has caused the face of the card to get all wrinkly and bubbled, which is a problem. Like you can see that the foil is coming off of the paper right here, and so that is not a bit of an issue. And then this stuck oh so gently to itself, but unlike its fellow peers, this one doesn't seem to have taken as much damage as the other decks that I purchased did. This was just sitting in the box next to all of my other Magic products, which were either sitting in the boxes that they came in or in an alternative box that I purchased for them. And the cards that were sleeved were all generally fine, except for the face card, which was on top of the deck, which got this massive Pringle-like curve in it. It bent out of shape really badly, to the point where this card can't even sit in the deck without the deck toppling over wherever this card is. And it is a highly marked card, and since the deck doesn't come with a non-foil version for you to play with, when you want to play as Cathril, you're going to have to find some way to uncurl this card. Now, I put this under some heavy books and I would manage to uncurl it a bit, but as you can see, it's still pretty bad. And so I'm going to have to find some way to possibly rehydrate this card so it doesn't stay so curled. Fortunately, if you want to play it as your face commander, I mean, the warping is an issue, but this isn't the worst thing in the world. But if you want to stick this in your deck, you want to try one of these other commanders out, then you're going to have a problem with this card essentially being an unplayable marked card. And so that's a problem with the production of this deck, but let's put that aside. And let's talk about this deck. Now, I'm really glad this came with a whole bunch of little counters. I don't know how I'm going to store these once I get a proper box for them, but this is very helpful because one of the things that this deck is about counters. The other thing that this deck is about abilities. And finally, there is a lesser supported archetype of leaving the battlefield, and that is going to be marked by the partners. So Cathril and Tyam are both interested in counters or abilities, and there is a little bit of a graveyard theme with Cathril. You put cards into your graveyard, and then as it fills up, you're going to have creatures with abilities in there. There's a Soul Flare somewhere in here to take advantage of that as well. And you can give your board a whole bunch of counters of various types depending on the types of creatures that are inside the graveyard when you cast Cathril. And so that is what Cathril is up to. The deck does support it. There is some decent milling, and a lot of the other creatures have keywords of some sort, and so you can power that up. And there is a bit of ability functions that you care about amongst there. I don't think that Cathril is the most powerful commander. It's more just fun to put a bunch of ability counters on your creatures and then, attack with sudden unexpected abilities. Although if Cathril is your commander, your opponent might see that coming. Tyam is a little bit more curious in that Tyam is a commander that cares about counters in particular, and Tyam only gives vigilance counters. So when other creatures come into the battlefield, they all get vigilance counters, which are not the most amazing counters, but they are fine, especially in commander when if you attack, you want to have stuff up to block because you have multiple other opponents that can attack you on your turn. But this lets you remove counters that you have put onto your creatures and then get cards back from your graveyard after it mills. And so the themes that both of these are playing into are very similar. There are some ways of getting counters on your creatures, and so you can often trigger Tyam and get a little bit of card advantage from your graveyard. But these two play well together and do play fairly well with the rest of the deck. There are a whole bunch of creatures that don't really do a whole lot in regards to working towards a counter theme, but at least a lot of them play towards the ability part of the theme, and so Cathril I think is a little bit stronger than Tyam as a result. The last theme is Yannick and Nikara's Exile Blink shenanigans, and so these two want you to have creatures leave the battlefield, and then when they do, you get counters and draw cards and gain life. The deck isn't really a blink deck, and so there aren't a ton of creatures that get that. It's not really an aristocrats deck either, and so I feel like Nikara and Yannick don't play with this deck that well. When I try to play them as my commanders, I found that I was rarely casting them because the synergies in the deck really lean a lot more towards what Cathril or Tyam are trying to do. And so these two, you may need to try to build an aristocrat's shell or a blink shell that takes more advantage of their abilities in order to get the maximum benefit out of them. Not that they're terrible commanders in and of themselves, they just don't fit well with what the rest of this deck is trying to do. And so that is my experience with the Symbiotic Swarm commander deck. Let me know what your thoughts were about the deck, if you had a chance to play it or watched any other content of other people playing it. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of my videos, you can hit subscribe. This is Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.